Ladies and gentlemen, I call this Sawyer County Zoning Committee meeting to order. Before we get started here, I would like to make a change on the agenda, moving conditional use application for CUP number 20-012 in the town of Weirgor, owner Cliff Parr, and 16. Okay. All right. Is everybody okay with that? We'll do that right after the rezone application. Okay. All right. Can we do a roll call, Kathy?
Oh, there we go. Ron.
Here.
Bruce. Here. Dawn. Troy. Here. Jesse. Here. And Tweet is not here. Okay.
Well, we have enough for a quorum.
Yeah,
So.
Dawn
Yes.
is online. I'll just let you know that.
All right, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Morning. Statement of committee hearing procedures. The full statement of committee and hearing procedure documents, including directions for individuals wishing to speak at a public hearing to be conducted at this zoning committee meeting, are available in the front of this room next to the agenda for today's meeting. The statement of committee hearing procedures document is hereby incorporated into record for this committee meeting. Statement of hearing notice: any public hearing conducted at today's committee meeting has been published as a Class 2 notice in accordance with Chapter 985 of the Wisconsin statutes in the Sawyer County Record and the Sawyer County Gazette, and posted. Okay. Approval of minutes. Can I get approval for the August 21 minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the August 21st minutes as distributed.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve August 21 minutes. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Public comment. Please note, comment time is intended for the general public comment, not comments relating to specific applications before this committee. Each agenda item requiring a public hearing will have its public hearing conducted just prior to the application being considered by this committee. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, we encourage you to hold your comments until that specific public hearing. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Dawn Pettit. I'm here. I was just having problems connecting my Bluetooth headset.
What was that? Okay. Couldn't even understand it. What did you say? Oh, nothing. Okay. All right, Jay.
Do you want to ask if there's any public comments?
Oh, that's right. Does anybody want to do a public comment?
Items not on the agenda.
Huh?
Otherwise, if they're here to speak on it.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move on here.
Hearing none. First rezone application this morning, public hearing rezone number 20-005 in the town of Winter. Owner James Smiley and Tamika Hollinger. Part of the southeast one quarter of the northeast one quarter, section 14, township 40 north, range 5 west. Parcel 032-540-141401. 14.68 acres, zone commercial 1. Purpose of the request is to change the zone district from commercial 1 to residential 1 for a private dwelling. As part of the staff report, this parcel is located at 5360 Log Lodge Road, which is just on the south side of Fish Trap Lake. Again, the request is to rezone 14.68 acres from commercial 1 to R1, as the applicant's statement is they're wishing to change the zone district for a private household. I will show you the attached maps here as well in the packet. They have no other, here, let me read this. So currently within the C1 zone district, just a residential house would not be permitted unless there was some other type of business or commercial use occurring on the property. The owners have no plans of having a commercial use on this property, therefore they are wanting to proceed with the rezone. The nearest R1 zone property in relation to this is approximately 2,000 feet away. Immediately adjacent to this parcel is also similarly zoned residential recreational 1 and recreational 2 zone property. The future land use map for the town of Winter, the town comprehensive plan, does show this area as commercial with other rural residential immediately adjacent. Town further goes on to state within the comprehensive plan, there's no single commercial core within the town, but instead scattered commercial development. This parcel itself is a larger tract of land within the area, but currently is vacant with no existing development on it. By action of the town board, motion was approved. Ronald Barnaby, chairman, Ronald Fandry, supervisor, Terry Pettigrew, supervisor. No additional comments. Signed, Lori Van Winkle, town clerk. There were 7 opinion letters sent out, 5 were returned, all with no objections. I have no objections to this, Michael and Wendy Haig. I have no objections, preferably one home versus commercial use has my support, signed Wesley Slaymaker. I have no objections to this, David Monday for Monday Properties LLC. I have no objections to this, Penny Jones Trust. I have no objections to this. Hausbar Laundry Company. That is all.
Okay, I need a motion to go into public hearing on rezone number 20-005.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make such a motion.
Okay. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to go into public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We're in public hearing.
I have no public hearing slips for this case, but I don't know if the owner is present or not.
Is the owner present? Okay.
The owner is present here online. I've just allowed them to talk.
Okay.
Mr. Smiley, are you available for comments?
I didn't hear the question, if there was a question asked.
I can barely hear you. Can you hear him, Mike? We can't hear him up here at all.
It's difficult for me to hear the people in the back.
Just hold on one second there, Mr. Smiley.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, see, you scared it, Mike.
I didn't hear the question, if there was a question asked.
No, we're wanting you to tell us what you got going on here, if you have, to the committee.
Yeah, we purchased the commercial property about a year ago, and we were hoping to get it rezoned into just a residential to build a cabin for recreation. We'll use it on weekends and our vacation home. But we don't have any plans to use it as a commercial lot.
Okay. All right. You guys got any questions for the owner? Okay, if not, is there anybody out there that's against this, or for this rezone? Want to speak? If not, is there anybody out there that's against the rezone that wants to speak? Okay, if nothing else, Make a motion, you need a motion to come out of public hearing?
I move to come out of public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to come out of public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to come out of public hearing.
Discussion action for rezone number 20-005, James Smiley and Tamika Hollinger. Legal description is previously read into record. The request is to rezone 14.68 acres from commercial 1 to residential 1. As per the applicant's statement, they are wishing to change this zone district for a private household.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the rezone application.
Okay, we have a motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the rezone. Any more discussion? If not, Kathy, can we have a roll call on this, please?
I don't know. Oh, there it is. Okay. Dawn. Dawn. Lost her. Troy.
Yes.
Tweed.
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Ron.
Yes.
Jesse.
Yes.
Thank you.
Need findings of facts?
Finding of facts is it would not be damaging to the property rights of others, and it's a consistent application of our zoning rule for surrounding property.
All right, and per the motion that we made in the front of it, we'll be moving up the, they discussed it and they were in favor. I don't know if, do they need an official motion to move an agenda? Okay,
Thank you.
we need a motion to move that agenda item, I guess.
I thought we did that.
Yeah,
Yes, we did.
it was, okay. To change the agenda, Cliff Parr 20-012, 20-016, after rezone apps.
Did they vote on it?
They did not.
Yeah, just take a quick vote.
Okay, we need a quick vote on the agenda change to move the Cliff Park packet up. So Kathy, why don't you just call it out?
We need a motion.
Oh, I need a motion to move that agenda item up.
I'll
Next.
make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to move that agenda item up forward. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries to move it up.
Thank you.
All right, so there we have now a public hearing for conditional use permit 20-012 in the town of Weirgor. Owner Cliff Parr, part of the southeast one quarter of the northeast one quarter, lot 21, CSM 6/248, section 26, township 37 north, range 7 west, parcel 030-737-261307, 1.95 total acres, zoned residential recreational 1. Purpose of this request is to build a 40 by 100 or a 50 by 80 accessory building for building of cabinets and woodworking as per section 4.26 parent 2 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance for the construction of a single accessory structure on an adjacent parcel divided by a public roadway that does not contain the principal structure. As per the staff report, again, the request is to build either a 40 by 100 or a 50 by 80, which would be a 4,000 square foot footprint of an accessory building for building of cabinets and woodworking. To give the committee a little bit of an update on this, we held these as two specific conditional use permit cases, and that one aspect of the conditional use permit would require for the accessory structure across the town road. There'll be another conditional use permit immediately after this, which is then for the use of that accessory structure, which would be then for the woodworking and cabinet building. That was advised by legal counsel to hold these as two separate conditional use permits and not combine them as one, is that if the applicant was in violation of one of the standards as for the use of the woodworking, that the building wouldn't be in violation, but the use would be in potential violation. So that's a little history on that aspect.
Okay, I got one question, OJ. It's either a 40 by 100 or a 50 by 80.
Yep.
Don't we need to know which one he wants to build?
At this point, the applicant had not decided on a final design. Those would be the same square footage requirements.
Oh, okay.
They'd both be 4,000 square feet of floor area. So I'd imagine he's probably still working with contractors and getting the design parameters built up as to which one makes, I guess, more financial sense as well as internal dimensional sense.
All right, just a question that I'd ask. All right.
Again, with the staff report, again, for section 4.26, parent 2, for the accessory structure across a public roadway. Zoning department determines that the proposed accessory structure cannot be constructed on that part of the lot containing the principal structure due to an inability to meet setbacks with a wetland complex and the location of an existing drain field. The property containing the principal structure has a very small amount of buildable area, less than the requested amount, and this area would make an existing garage non-accessible. Again, as part of this request, there would be another CUP request for a woodworking shop within the RR1 zone district. As part of some of the conditions laid out in the staff report for this request, that would be that no habitable area is allowed in this structure at this time, that a fire number would be required for the new shop on the separate lot, that the parcels would need to be combined with a lot containing the principal dwelling with the restrictive covenants and not sold separately unless a new principal dwelling was built on that separate parcel that would then contain that new woodworking shop. And the size of the proposed building not to exceed 4,000 square feet, and all other setback requirements are met. As per the town board, motion was approved. Mark Bartlett, chairman, Ken Susan, supervisor, Cliff Parr was absent, or abstained, I should say. No further comments. Signed, Michelle Myers, town clerk. There were 5 opinion letters sent out. 1 was returned. I have objections to this. I've always been a supporter of small business. In this case, I feel I must oppose this business primarily due to the location being in a residential area. I feel that this is not good in the middle of this area of a single family homes. Possible noise, increased traffic, and possible changes in property values. Signed, Gerald Haas Trust. That is all.
Okay. Need a motion to go in public hearing on CUP number 20-012.
I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to go into public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Parr, you want to come to the podium, state your name, and tell us your version of what you got going on here and what you need?
My name's Cliff Parr, and I'm the applicant for the conditional use permits as described by Jay. And pretty self-explanatory, this was my plan to build a woodworking shop, either 40 by 100 or 80 by 50, which is, the plan is, it's gonna be my act 2 in life after I retire here in a year or 2 or so. That was my plan. My nephew is going to be my business partner in this, and we're also looking at other property too in southern Sawyer County, you know, away from my property, but that has not been a done deal yet, so this is like my plan B.
Okay.
Do you have any questions of me?
Any questions for Mr. Parr? Jesse?
Yes, sir, just a couple of questions, and it's going to reference the opposition letter. Seems there's some concern about noise and traffic and stuff like that. So just curious as to how many employees you might look at having in this facility?
It would just be myself and my nephew.
Okay, and are you planning to have a storefront, meaning you're going to sell your items there, or you're only building them?
No, it'll be, most of it will be done online sales with other construction companies for cabinets.
Okay, so there's really not going to be any increase in traffic then?
There would be with delivering supplies as well as shipping out product.
Okay, so that's a weekly thing or a monthly?
Don't know yet. Depends on how the economy turns around here, so.
Okay, so some increased traffic, but not much. Okay,
Not
thank you,
much,
sir.
Any more questions? Dawn, you have any questions?
No, I don't. I think it's a good opportunity for the area.
Okay, thank you. Thanks,
I guess
Cliff.
I do, Mr.
Oh,
Chairman. Oh, Mr. Parr, the opposition letter again. Where does this trust, are these folks living compared to where you're gonna build this?
They would own the neighboring property just to the north of the lot where I would be building on. And there's a, Mrs. Hawes, Dorothy Hawes lives there by herself. She's a widow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cliff.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, anybody out there that wants to speak for this CUP? Anybody out there that wants to speak against this CUP? If not, need a motion to come out of public hearing?
Come out of public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to come out of public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries.
Discussion action for CUP 20-012, Town of Weirgo, owner Cliff Parr. Legal description is previously read into record. Again, this conditional use permit is for the request to build an accessory structure across a public roadway. The proposed size of the building to be either 40 by 100 or 50 by 80. That is all.
Okay. Committee? Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
Got your light on? Mr. Morgan?
Oh.
Okay. Okay, we need a motion to either approve or disapprove.
I'll introduce a motion to approve this CUP.
Okay, we have a motion,
I'll second it.
and we have a second to approve the CUP number 20-012. Roll call, Kathy. Oh, discussion? Okay, now roll call.
Ron,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Tweed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Jesse, we need a finding of fact.
Oh, conditions.
He might not have his copy with him.
It's on the staff report.
Oh, sure.
I would have it up on the screen right now.
So it would not be damaging to the rights of others or property values. It would not be detrimental to ecology, wildlife, wetlands, or shorelands. Should I read all 8 of them? No.
Yeah, yeah.
It would not create an objectionable view. It would be compatible with the surrounding use and the destroy prime agricultural lands. It would not create traffic or highway access problems. It would not create topographical problems such as runoff, drainage, erosion, flooding, or vegetative cover removal. And it would not create an air quality, water supply, or pollution problem.
Thank you.
Moving on to public hearing for conditional use permit 20-016, Town of Weirgar, owner again Cliff Parr, part of the southeast one quarter and northeast one quarter. Lot 21, CSM number 12 section 26, township 37 north, range 7 west, parcel 030-737-261307, 1.95 total acres, zoned residential recreational 1. Purpose of this request is then to build a cabinets and woodworking building, subject to section 17.2, parent B, parent 5 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, would require the prior approval of a conditional use permit for a private wholesale carpentry or woodworking shop limited to the property owner. Per the staff report, again, these are two separate conditional use permits. You just heard the one for placing of an accessory structure across a town road. This is now for the actual use of the woodworking and cabinet building shop. You're advised to treat these as two separate conditional use permits. And I would advise the committee to certainly look into a list of possible conditions as to, those that have been listed on my staff report or other ones that this committee could certainly put as conditions for this request. By action of the town board, motion was approved. Mark Bartlett, chairman, Ken Susan, supervisor. No additional comments and signed. Michelle Myers, town clerk. Again, there was the same opinion letter sent out to adjoining property owners and again returned with the objections from the Gerald Haas Trust, which is the property lying just to the north of the proposed building. The comments again had stated that they were opposed to this as the primary location was in a residential setting, that there would be an increase of possible noise, that there'd be a change in property values, and again, that it would be potentially traffic issues. That is all.
Okay. I need a motion to go into public hearing on CUP number 20-016.
I'll make that motion to go to public hearing.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries to go into public hearing. All right, Mr. Parr, you already spoke once. You want to do it again? State your name, please.
My name is Cliff Parr.
Question for you. It says that this is allowed if it's a private or a wholesale carpentry or woodworking shop. Now, is this going, it's obviously not going to be private from what you just said. Is it just going to be limited to wholesale operations?
Yes. We would be contracting with, construction companies for building cabinets or other furniture.
Okay. Jay, that meets the definition of wholesale cabinet?
It would, and I even believe that there's kind of a little bit of a catch-all under that, in that if it's deemed by the zoning committee to be a similar nature of that conditional use permit, that you could still hear that as such. Specifically on that kind of woodworking scale, so.
And as far as hours of operation, with the noise or whatever, I don't anticipate a lot of noise because it's all indoors, but I certainly would not object to, certain hours of operation for it.
Mr. Morgan, you want to speak? Okay. You don't want to speak, Jesse?
That was my question.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay, thanks, Mr. Parr. All right, is there anybody out there that'd like to speak for this CUP? Anybody out there want to speak against this CUP? If not, need a motion to come out of public hearing?
I'll move to come out of public hearing, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion, and I'll second that to come out of public hearing. Now, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries to come out of public hearing.
Up to the committee.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve this conditional use permit subject to, that this conditional use permit would be limited to the property owner only, and that the zoning must approve the placement of the building. The size of the building cannot exceed 4,000 square feet. All materials must be stored within the building. Hours of operation, 6 to 6, Monday through Saturday, and all other town, state, county, federal laws and regulations are complied with.
Okay, we have a motion, and I will second that motion. Is there any more discussion? Jesse?
I just have a I mean, I guess a little concern where it says, the motion says that all materials must be stored inside. I mean, I don't know, that means, that sounds like absolutely nothing, not one item can be outside the building. I just don't know if that's realistic, if that needs to be included in the original motion, or if that's a deal breaker or not. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Parr, you have any problems with any of them conditions that they're putting on there for you?
I don't, because realistically, we would house all the wood product indoors, otherwise it would be dangerous.
Yeah, because making cabinet stuff is gonna be pretty high tense kind of wood, so, okay.
Water damage.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Kathy?
Troy,
Yes.
Bruce,
Yes?
Tweed,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Dawn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Findings of fact?
Finding of facts, given the conditions that were placed on this conditional use permit, in my opinion, it will not be damaging to the property rights of others or property values.
Okay, good to go. Thank you, Cliff.
1 second to get back to the agenda portion here.
Public hearing on 20006.
Yep, let me just get my stuff in order. Okay, now we will hear a public hearing for rezone 20-006 in the town of Bass Lake. Owner, Hayward National Golf Club, Inc., owner James Massey, part of the north one half of the south, or of section 4, part lot 1, CSM 16/41, section 4, township 40 north, range 9 west, parcel 002-940-04-2108, 73.18 acres, zoned agricultural 1 and commercial 1. Purpose of the request is to rezone all the agricultural 1 land to residential recreational 2, then to apply for a conditional use permit application for a 197 RV site campground, accepting that of the commercial 1 out of the rezone, leaving 64.52 total acres to be rezoned.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Paulson.
I have a question for, I guess, Mr. J. I've seen a number of emails back and forth, and can somebody tell me exactly where we stand with this project?
As of right now, we are still holding the public hearing.
True, but, I mean, is it likely this, as structured, is going to proceed?
I will let legal determine that when we get to a potential discussion action, but we've been advised to proceed with at least hearing of the public hearing process, as it has been noticed as such.
But if the deal is going to fall apart, why do we have to have all these people speak and talk when, you know, the deal's going to fall apart?
I'll defer to legal counsel.
Go ahead.
Because the applicant for this, excuse me, particular item has not withdrawn the application. So even if it is highly unlikely that the development is going to move forward, the request for review has not been withdrawn. Now, we're going to get to an item where the request has been withdrawn, so that's a different legal analysis. But for these, it has to proceed. As Jay mentioned, we can have a different discussion when we get to that point, unless you want to have the discussion now.
Like I
Regarding,
said, the only time I guess want to have the discussion here would be reading all the opinion comments into record if there was something that was prohibiting this committee from making any action as to, you know, why having to read these opinion letters twice into the record. That would be my only concern. I do agree with legal that we could probably still hold a public hearing. Again, it's the reading of probably, I'd say close to 1,000 pages of comments.
So I think it's a waste of time, you know, because I just do think if the deal's going to fall apart, why do we have to rezone this property?
I agree with Mr. Paulson on that. That was always my thought when this come across yesterday, that why do we need to hear this if it's gonna fall through? I mean, to me, it's just a waste of time.
Because the applicant has not withdrawn it. Now, if the committee wants, I understand from a practical standpoint, it doesn't make sense. It's a waste of time. But legally, they have not withdrawn the application.
So there's nothing in writing, is what you're saying.
There's nothing in writing to
For the
have
rezone.
withdrawn for the request. Now, if the committee does not want to proceed, I would not recommend that from a legal standpoint, but if there is the strong inclination that the committee does not want to proceed, I don't even want to say you could make a motion to table the public hearing, but, you know, that's within your discretion. I wouldn't recommend it, but
Well,
we can,
go ahead.
you can do whatever you want.
Well, that's what-
Essentially, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
That's, you know, that's my inclination, is to postpone this and rehear it no later than January of next year. You know, as the participants work out all their deals, or, you know, then we can hear it if it's still alive.
Is this, the applicant for this component, is he or she here?
You can certainly, Chairman can ask for that. Either Steve Skong or James Massey.
Is James Gong or Mr. Massey here? No.
I'll check online here. Is Mr. Massey or Mr. Skong on virtual? Yeah, go ahead, the Pixel 4a. Are you Mr. Massey or Mr. Skong? I'm unmuting them. They have their self-muted still. Yeah, so I don't believe they are. There's a hand raised and I've unmuted them and they have their self-muted still, so.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. It will be just fine to carry that forward until January.
And who is this?
This is Mr. Massey.
Are you wishing to table your rezone request, being the owner of the property, till January 1? Or January of 2021?
Yes, sir. Yes.
He's got to email it in writing. He's got to, I mean, that is what the legal link that we're looking for. Mr. Massey, will you put that in an email and send that to Jay, please? So that what you're essentially doing is formally withdrawing your, or withdrawing for a time certain, essentially, the request for rezone. So you would actually be making a change to your application.
No, she wouldn't.
Yes, I understand.
So he did say confirm that?
No, I guess I have a clarification. Now, this isn't a withdrawal yet. He wants to table.
No, it's
Table it.
Yeah.
right. So it's
Postpone it.
right. So it's not a withdrawal, a complete withdrawal, but it's essentially it's a change of the application because he's asking for it at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
So he just has to, from the county's perspective, in order to be protected legally for not holding a public hearing, he has to agree that his application is not going to move forward at this time, which he's doing, but ideally, that should be in an email.
Yeah, Mr. Massey, I can communicate with you as to formulate that email. If you have my email address and want to type something out that you are, postponing and making a request to change your application to a date certain, at such point, we could hold another public hearing, or you can then formally withdraw the application.
Sure, I understand. And as long as I have the email and a form of sent to me, I'll be glad to fill it in.
Okay, thank you.
So is that gonna be for all of these?
That would be for the rezones.
Just the rezone?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Massey, I'd like to further ask you, would you also then want to make that request for the conditional use permit aspects for, it would be CUP 20-013 and 20-014?
The same for all, correct?
Thank you.
It doesn't make any sense. If it's not rezoned, we can't look at the
Correct.
CUP anyway.
Right.
But at this point, we do have the owner of the property wishing to postpone the public hearing until January 2021, at which point we will either hold an official public hearing or we would request a formal withdrawal as a dismissal of the application from the owner.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, is a motion required? If so, I will make that motion.
I believe there has to be a motion, right, Rebecca?
To postpone until date certain, January of 2021 zoning committee meeting.
Okay, we have a motion, and I will second that motion. What? Any more comment, discussion? Huh? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Mr. Massey, when you submit that email for the requested deferral of action, just make sure that you also include the deferral of action for the actual action, the rezone and the conditional use permit request, because we're talking within terms of deferring the public hearing, but we also just have to make sure that there's a request for deferral of the actual action and what is being requested.
Okay.
And you can work with Jay on that too,
Right,
in
so-
terms of,
Do we need a vote on the motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll do a roll call vote, Kathy.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead. Mr.
Again, just to clarify, we were talking about three separate parcels. Is this owner able to speak to the third parcel? Or is that, do we still go
No.
through that, correct?
And we'll go through that process in order, because there is actually a formal withdrawal of that other conditional use
Okay, well,
permit.
everyone was saying all of them. I'm like, that's not all of them.
The ones that he owns.
Exactly, thank you.
that's an important clarification. That's a good question.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. So we have a motion and a second to postpone, now to get this straight, rezone number 20-007 and number 20-006. Right?
Yeah, do you want to make the motions for the conditional use permits in that same motion, or wait till we get to that spot?
I think we should wait until we get to that spot.
Fair enough. This is the
Okay.
one for the rezone then.
Right, okay. So Kathy, you do roll call, please?
Troy,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Tweed,
Yes.
Dawn. Dawn. Jesse.
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, seeing that rezone,
Oh, thank you.
seeing that rezone 20-006 and 20-007 were postponed until at least January of 2021 to either further hold a public hearing for the request or to consider the application dismissed and ask for a formal withdrawal. We will now be moving on to conditional use permit number 20-013, where this conditional use permit is from the same owner, James Massey, Hayward National Golf Club, Inc., and conditional use permit 20-014, also Hayward National Golf Club, Inc., owner again, James Massey. You've heard from the owner of the property that they're also wanting to postpone hearing of these conditional use permits until a date certain, being January of 2021, to either hold a public hearing, or we would ask that the application would be dismissed and we would ask for a formal withdrawal.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to postpone until the January 2021 zoning committee meeting CUP 20-013, 20-014.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to postpone CUP-20013 and 20014. Right? Okay. Kathy, can we do roll call, please?
Bruce,
Yes?
Dawn.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Tweed,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Troy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now this 2015.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. Where is that? All right.
Chairman?
Conditional use permit 20-015. As of yesterday, I received a call as well as an email transcription from the owner, Mr. Robert R. Gershbach. Sawyer County zoning, I, Robert R. Gershbach, hereby withdraw my request of conditional use permit 20-015 as conditions for the campground have substantially changed from what I was initially led to believe. Sorry for the inconvenience, Robert R. Gershbach. So we have a request from the owner for a formal withdrawal of application CUP 20-015.
So we just need a motion to
Accept the withdrawal.
accept his withdrawal?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the withdrawal of conditional use permit 20-015.
I'll second.
that. Oh, Dawn.
Dawn?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to withdraw 20-015. Let's do a roll call, Kathy.
Tweed,
Yes.
Jesse,
Yes.
Troy,
Yes.
Dawn,
Yes. Yes.
Bruce, Ron.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Thank you. That was fun.
Yes. Come up here to the podium, please. State your name and address. If we can get your address too, please.
My name is Guy Houston. I live at 15873 West Sunshine Acres Lane. I just have a question. We're postponing this zoning and conditional land use request because one of the parties pulled out. So now they have to reconfigure?
Re-look at it. Rebecca, will you speak on that for us?
That's my understanding.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted clarification because, I mean, let's say I had a traffic ticket and I was supposed to come here today and I came in and said, well, I want to postpone it till January. So I just didn't understand.
Okay.
Do you want me to expand on that?
Yes.
So from the county's perspective, the county is looking at the specifics of what's in front of it. And that is, a rezone request and a conditional use request. Now, all of these mix together in order to make one development. But think of them as pieces of a puzzle. And even if one of the pieces is missing, the county still has to look at the other pieces. And given that both of the applicants who make up those pieces of the puzzle have requested that the county defer their action, from the county's perspective, that's why the county is not taking action.
Okay, thank you for answering my question.
Thank you, sir.
Linda Zilmer, another process question, being that this is postponed to January. Will there be discussion on having the applicant pay for an additional hearing? Because this would have to be all published again. And also, is there the sense that the proposal may change enough that it would require going back to the towns before it came here? And I don't know if you considered that in your decisions. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Whether the changes are material enough to warrant going back to the towns, we don't know that. Because you don't have a crystal ball, so you don't know exactly what is going to come back, if anything. But Ms. Zilmer is correct that if it is a material difference, it may have to go back to the town. And also with respect to the public hearing, which is the discussion that we had previously, because of changes, even if you had held a public hearing today, if there were material changes, it would still have to come back for another public hearing. And that the challenge with that is because it has already been published and it was already what I call agendatized as a public hearing.
Speaking from the zoning department, there would probably be some additional compensation that would be needed to post new agenda items. And we would figure that out internally, is that we would not be losing money on additional publication noticing fees.
And that is permitted by your bylaws.
Okay. So I want to apologize to the audience out there on behalf of this committee that you wasted your time today to come here and not be able to speak on what you believe. So part of this committee, I apologize for that. All right, Jay, let's move on to the new business.
Thank you.
You bet.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I'm going to wait until some of the
Sure.
bodies move out of here.
You bet.
To not fight over the noise.
That also applies at the Hayward portion?
Yes.
Yes. You got a couple seconds, go ahead.
My name's Matt Marienfeld. I live on 9824 Fairway Drive. I just wanted to say thank you for your thoughtful and measured responses, actually listening and really looking at the work. That isn't something we've seen up to this point. It's appreciated.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Matt Marienfeld.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. Agenda item 4A, trailer camps and campgrounds. This is referring to the deck size requirements. We had tabled this from last year as we had some technical difficulties in getting this language out. We did have some discussion about this, and I believe it was Mr. Morgan that was looking for additional draft language as to where the changes were occurring, and also to bring a draft change back that would show a 300 square foot size for open detached accessory structures. The document you have up on the screen now, as well as included in your packet, would be the highlighted changes to section 6.611 parent 5. I had also stuck in additional language there that not only does it refer to campgrounds and campers, but it would also then include the camping cabins and the park model trailers, as those are, again, common types of structures that are used within campgrounds. So we did want to include those as, having the deck requirements as well. Again, the changes from what was initially on there, the initial, or the actually ordinance as of right now, would only allow for a deck that would not extend 6 feet out from the main wall of the camper and not to exceed the entire length of the camper. We heard reports several months back that some of these campers now are becoming, 34 feet in length, 38 feet in length. So right now, with a permit, you could have a 6 foot wide or 6 foot deep deck by 38 feet long, which seems like a weird configuration for a deck, being only 6 feet. With some of the slide walls they have on there now, you wouldn't be able to even get around the deck. So then we decided that, there's probably a merit enough to make a change there and make some different configuration requirements. This was a citizen's request to bring this forward to the committee to explore these types of configurations or square footage requirements. Again, the language you have in front of you is a document that I prepared to, mirror those comments I was hearing, at least from concerned citizens, as well as some of the comments that I've heard from the committee members. At this point, we would have a 10-foot minimum setback from these deck structures to other campsites or campers, that the open detached structure, be it the deck or patio, would not to exceed 300 square feet in size, and then all the other requirements of section 6.6 are met. So those would be the material changes of the ordinance. This is on the agenda item as a discussion, possible action, then to send to towns. If the towns were in approval of this, it would still come back to this committee as an official public hearing prior to it either having a recommendation for approval to go to the County Board of Supervisors or denial to go.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I have some questions, if I may.
You may, Mr.
Jay, when was the last time we revised 6.6, the trailer camps and campground ordinance?
I've been here for 12 years, and it has not been advised since then.
Okay.
Revised.
The camping season is basically over, isn't it? Or just about?
Just about, yeah.
Okay, and when does the camping season start up again? April, May?
Whenever it gets warm.
Pardon me?
Whenever it gets warm.
Okay, June, July then.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, you do probably have some people coming back in April and May.
Right.
The majority of them being that Memorial Day weekend.
You know, and after last month, I went back and looked at the ordinance again, and do we really want a maximum of 100 campsites per acre? I mean, so if you had a 100-acre campsite, I mean, 100-acre campground, I mean, that's a whole lot of campsites. I'm looking at 6.62, maximum number of sites, 10 per gross acre.
Yeah, so 10 per acre.
Yeah.
So if you had 10 acres, you theoretically could have 100 campsites.
Is that really, I mean, I don't have an opinion, but I mean, have we looked at it as a county? Is that really what we want? I mean, where I'm going with this is that I think we should take a holistic look of 6.6, you know, given that the camping season is basically over, and let's look at the holistic ordinance, which we probably haven't revised in at least 12 years. And then rather than pick it apart a little bit, you know, you just don't know what you're going to get, you know. So we're kind of building an elephant here.
I would agree that there are several other changes, you know, even more specifically within the campground portion of the ordinance that probably do need some fine tuning and amendment adjustment. It's just how far down the rabbit hole you want to go with digging into ordinance amendments, which again, those are lengthy processes. This one's already been going on for 4 months, and it's for a deck size change, where if we open up all of 6.6 or 6.611, we might not even be ready by the start of camping season next spring.
Right. But
that would be my only concern with it.
No, I understand your concern, and, you know, and you've got an awful lot on your plate. But in my opinion, we owe it to the citizens of the county to take a holistic view of 6.6, you know, and I can see a couple other possible changes that we should be making. So I would like to make a motion to table this or postpone this discussion until we have a holistic view of 6.6.
Okay, we have a motion. Anybody want to second it?
I'll second it.
Ma'am, just hang on. Let us do our job up here, please. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I will second it.
I know I'm gonna say I need a second. Let me do my part. Okay. I am gonna make that second to postpone this. Is that what you were saying, Mr. Paulson?
Yes.
And take another look at it.
Right.
Second. Come on. Sorry. I'm on that
Okay,
phone.
we have a motion and a second to postpone.
Stefano, put to the circle.
Ma'am, come up. State your name, please, your address.
You're 99.2. Do you have your cell phone on you, or?
Okay, so my name is Joan Barton, and I live in Wisconsin Rapids, 8451 Arbor Lane, Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin.
Open your
And
camera and have an iPhone?
I have been coming to Sawyer County for 30 years to camp, and we are at Blueberry. We were here last week, or last month, regarding the 6.6 issue about the deck size. And it was postponed till this week. So are we not going to discuss that at all? Because we're time sensitive here for Alan Sybil here. So let me just state what I was going to say, and then maybe that will help you make your decision, okay? So first of all, I'm discussing the 6.6 issue. And for your information, I've been camping for 45 years. Camping season opens up when fishing weekend happens at most campgrounds, which is the first weekend in May. It doesn't end for us until the pipes freeze about the middle of October. Okay, so don't tell me I'm done yet, because I still got some steam left in me. Okay, so anyway, I don't represent an association, but I am a member, a permanent camper at Blueberry Hill Campground and Blueberry Lake, and have been for 17 years. Before that, I was at Black Bear. My husband and I were. So, and our qualifications are, I've been camping a long, long time. Okay, so my concern is, I have never, ever, in the 30 years we've been camping in Sawyer County, any of the places, heard anything about deck size minimum requirements. So this was new to us. And our friend, Mr. Burt, wanted to go to Cisco's, and they told him his deck was too big. It should only be 200 square feet. Mr. Cisco and my husband are both handicapped. At Black Bear Lodge, the terrain was nice and flat. At Blueberry Lake, holy buckets, we got ruts and rocks and what have you, and it is a safety measure that we had to have a deck. So we have a deck in front of our camper. Ours deck is 15 years old. We're technically grandfathered in, so it doesn't matter to me, but a lot of the campers who couldn't be here today said, please voice our opinion. So one of the things that you guys may not be familiar with is campers, of course, are getting bigger and bigger. And so then your square footage gets larger. My husband took pictures of our deck, if any of you want to see it. And we don't have an elaborate deck. We have a safe deck. But this year, we actually got a handicap camper. And a handicap camper is longer and it has 2 doors. So currently by our back door, we have a little piece of wood and a cement block and a step. But if we fix that, we're going to be over the minimum deck requirements. Also, 2 pieces of our deck are movable. So I don't know if that counts as permanent as it counts in the square footage, because we can move those 2 blocks, all right? Because I don't know what the rules, I never heard of this before. In order to get a variance, I understand it's $750 to be considered for a variance, which I think is highway robbery. You can address that later to see if I'm incorrect. So we didn't go get a variance, but we heard about this meeting. So anyway, if we repair our deck or we got a new camper, does that mean that we have to start all over again as new campers? That seems unfair to us. Also, we have several families in our campground. There's 38 permanent members in our campground. We have several families that have 3 and 4 sites apiece. So they are closer to.
Kind of sum it up here?
Yep.
Please?
So,
thank you.
Okay, so what I wonder is, what is the goal of having 200 square feet for a deck? What is your goal? I know you're going to move it to 300 square feet. My proposal would be, every campground I've been to is different. Leave it up to the individual campground owner. Then you guys don't have to hire an inspector. It's not about how big it is for me, for other people's, it's whether it's safe. If I'm standing on their deck and I'm going to fall off, so that's my concern. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Linda, you wanted to speak on this? No? Okay, go ahead, sir. State your name. And your address, please.
Okay. I'm John Barton, husband of her. Luckily, she's let me speak to. 8451 Arbor Lane, Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. Been coming up here 45 years plus on fishing, camping. And once again, just to touch on a few things that she said, I believe I've never heard of this variant, or never heard of the 200 square foot in any of the campgrounds I ever stayed at, and talking with the people that have built decks. So, and I know a lot of them. I know that Sawyer County has over 25 campgrounds, and they're probably looking at putting more in because it's a popular thing that's starting to happen now with this COVID-19. That's over 1,000 people, or over 1,000 campers if you figure each one has about 25 to 30 campers. Okay, so you add that up to the people that come in this town to spend money. On a rainy day, this town is packed, and a lot of those campers, we use them as our vacation homes. Sorry, not all of us can afford $400,000, $500,000 on a lake for a vacation home. So we spend a lot of money up here, and I don't think you really want to stick an arrow into a hornet's nest and stir up all these people that built these decks that are over 250, 300 square feet to rile them up, to piss them off, because there are other campgrounds going up in other counties. They have a choice. They can move. They don't have to be here. So with that said, 200 square feet isn't very big, 300 maybe, but our size of our new fifth wheel is 44 feet, okay? So we'd like to be 8 foot out from there and at least come down to the rear door, which would be about 35 feet. To be safe, to get up and down, I need a railing on that. So I'd be over 300 feet, just like Al's is right now, because he built his to get into the rear door. But then, with that said, I know you pulled some of the counties around here. We happen to come by Holcomb Flowage. If you want to go look at a campground that's built with decks, nicely done, go look at Holcomb. They have probably over 125 campers in there, beautiful decks. There's no restrictions in that county. So, I mean, we do have choices. I guess that's about it.
I've seen them.
You know, safety reason, we have to build over our, we can't cut out every rock that's in the ground around here, you know, your soil, and we have a lot of pine trees by us, so we have a lot of ruts that are there. So we have to have something to walk on. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Burke, you want to speak?
Alan Burt, Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. I've been coming up here to Hayward area between Nelson Lake and the Flowage and Blueberry Lake for over 40 years now, and this is kind of a hardship. I have a big camper, it's a 44-footer, and between the front door and the rear door, I need at least 28 feet. And for, say there was a fire in there, to get out one door to the other and not have a deck to get out onto, it'd be a hazard, you know, or safety reasons. That, I think that's something that you need to look at for access, you know.
And you're always allowed ingress and egress out of the doors. That's not necessarily the issue. I mean, we would allow for a landing area to have, you know, safe ingress and egress out of that camp.
Yeah.
That's not being discussed here today. It's the larger deck size.
Yes, I understand, but
Connection of the decks between the doors, and where is the hardship in something like that? That would be the question I would throw back.
yeah. And then the other thing is with the slide outs, only being able to come out 6 feet and try to walk by a slide out, you know, you just don't have any room left to have a table and chairs put out there, and the way they set up the awning systems on these campers, you're wasting your money. But thank you anyway for hearing us.
Thank you. Doug, state your name and your address. And you got 3 minutes, buddy.
Thank you. Douglas Kurzweil, 11055W Arrow Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. I've only lived full-time as a resident taxpayer of Sawyer County for just a little over 44 years. I think Mr. Paulson's motion is spot on. This just talks about decks. I haven't heard anything about the attached screen porches, the carports, the canopies, that basically are constructed in such a way to indicate a significant degree of permanence at the site. And I think Mr. Paulson is absolutely correct. Take a look at the thing, do something comprehensive. Don't just address the decks. Address the screen porches, the enclosed porches, the canopies, the carports that are attached to an awful lot of these units too. So that's all I have to say on it. Do it all up, do it comprehensively, and maybe it'll be good for another 10 or 12 years.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Linda, did you want to say something?
Linda Zilmer, and I just remembered I did submit a slip, and so just for the record, I do support both what Mr. Paulson has motioned as well as what Mr. Kurzweil has identified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am, can you submit your address like the other people did?
Oh, yes, Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner, home address 902 Holly Hill Lane, Birchwood, Wisconsin. Thank you.
Mr. Schuman?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in discussion, I'm also in favor of the motion that's on the floor that we take a look at the entire camping ordinance and maybe do it in one sweeping shot to have a public hearing on all of this. But I know earlier, Jay, you had mentioned the last couple months that you had looked at other counties, similar counties to us, in comparison with their ordinances, and we're pretty consistent. And I do understand a lot of the concerns here regarding the two doors and getting out in case of a fire. I do like the idea that 300 square foot that Mr. Morgan brought up is a great idea with the big slide outs and everything. I don't see that being offensive at all. So I'm just in favor of this, and I look forward to looking at the entire ordinance and making the changes and passing it a clean copy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Thanks, Mr. Schuman.
Mr. Chairman, may I add some more comments, please?
You certainly may, Mr.
Okay. Well, I mean, what got me thinking about this whole ordinance is the 197 potential campsites we were having on the old golf course. And, I mean, the campers are getting bigger. And they've changed substantially since we've had this ordinance in place. And there are more campsites coming. You know, so in my opinion, let's take a look at the whole thing. And I don't have a personal, I guess, an issue with the 300 square feet. I think it's probably fine. But there's some other things in the ordinance that may not be fine. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Mr. Morgan?
Well, and I agree, it would be great to work on the comprehensive piece of it. One of my concerns is that sometimes it seems that the more complex and the more changes there are when we send it to the towns, the greater chance that there's one piece of it. And so I guess I'd just like us to have a strategy as to how we communicate that with the townships. I mean, to me, there could be an advantage of doing it piecemeal because, you know, then one piece of it with 15 individual townships or 16 or whatever, just don't shoot it down because of one piece. And so I'm really torn about that part of it. I agree it should be comprehensive. I would like to look at the whole ordinance. I'm just wondering if that's going to come back around and be counterproductive. That's all. And the other thing too is that the 300 square foot, I mean, that's up for discussion. I mean, I realize things are changing, but the bottom line is that each individual campground owner, other than the setback and the square footage that is the maximum from a county standpoint, each individual campground owner, this does not preclude them from enforcing a smaller size. It's still their property. And I want to make sure that, you know, we're on the same page here.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Anyone else?
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
It looks like Phil's on there too. Again, I mean, this request was made by a campground owner that actually wanted to do the right thing. You know, I have up on the screen right now what the current ordinance would read. And again, right now, the current ordinance only allows a 6-foot wide deck out from the solid wall, not the slide wall, and the length shall not exceed the entire enclosed body of the camping equipment. So in there, right in that aspect, we saw where there was definitely an error and definitely some issues with, having only a 6-foot wide deck. That's really not that wide of a deck in today's standards, whether it's on a camper, whether it's on your house. Who wants a 6-foot wide deck? So that's where we started diving into this to make the changes. I do agree with the holistic approach and going through everything else, but I guess where does it start and where does it end when you start piecemealing or diving into the entire thing? Where this was the one aspect that was the sore thumb of the issue as to, we probably should make some corrections to this aspect here. I know you have a motion on the table right now with a second, so I'll just leave it at that. And I do believe Mr. Neese had a comment as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Neese.
Thank you. This is Phil Neese, 7915, the letter N, County Road E, Town of Bass Lake. As a former member of the 2007 Campground Committee, our ordinance started out, basically was based on a tent and a fire ring. Presently, and over a period of time, we piecemealed it, and that's the reason that we partially have the mess we have now. We are now getting very large RVs, camp models. They're all seasonal. I mean, almost every campground, if you tried to get just drive in here for the summer and for 2 or 3 days, it'd be very difficult. Everything is seasonal. The size of the decks, they've gotten larger. We went from grass. I don't know whatever happened to grass when you were camping. You got to have wood decks. You can't sit on the ground. I don't know. But anyway, and I'm not against whether it's 200, 300, 224. That's not the point. I think I urge you not to piecemeal this. One of the comments we've always gotten back from the towns, and as a former town official, was that zoning was always sending things out to us. Here was this, and then next month there was another piece of something coming. So I think if we had, I'm really, really in favor of a holistic approach, because there are a lot bigger issues. There's the 10 for, that 200-acre one we had in Bass Lake, which really, and I live in Bass Lake, really brought it to our attention, is that if you take 10 times, it's not quite 200 acres, times that, he could have, which is ridiculous, he could have put 2,000 campsites in there by our ordinance. And when even in the committee in 2007, the campground owners thought that having 10 was ridiculous, and one of the recommendations was to lower it, and it never got done. But anyway, I would, what's happening also that we need to look at when we're looking at this whole thing. Right now, if you go to campingallowed.com, Sawyer County, our realtors or people are advertising small little plots of land, 20,000 square foot, that you can come to Sawyer County and get a privy and so forth, and for a very small amount of money, $3,000 or $4,000, you can have your own personal campsite. And so, and I don't know if that's a bad thing or not a bad thing, but we're in the middle of the comprehensive plan. We're trying to look like what this county is going to look like 10 years from now, 20 years from now. What is the best for the environment that we're living here with? We went from a 4x4 platform to, okay, you could have decks that got stuck in. And then if you drive around, then the next thing we got knee walls, we got screens, and then a roof. And because of mosquitoes, you surely have to have screens. But anyway, I'll end it there. I would highly encourage the county to really sit down and spend some time. And it wouldn't take that long to try to bring this whole thing together, because we got 2 or 3 different elements working against each other here. And we're not consistent within the ordinance, by the way. It says one thing one place and says another place. I won't go into that. So, but anyway, that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. We have a motion and second on the floor to postpone. All in favor, say aye. 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 All opposed? Motion carries. Rebecca, you wanted to say something on this too, didn't you?
Just briefly. This is a great example of a matter that, as the county is looking at the ordinances, Jay and I, and we'll have discussion about the overlay of state jurisdiction, because DACAP does have specific regulations on campgrounds and so forth. So this will be a great opportunity for the committee to work through a specific issue that is regulated by the state, and you're working within your realm of jurisdiction too.
Thank you. Okay, yay, number B.
Moving on to letter B. This is bringing back the temporary guest corridors bunkhouse ordinance for discussion, possible action to send to towns. We're actually on version 14 now. I've made a few other changes as to further clarify and solidify some of the definition requirements. Those here are highlighted in red. We've always taken the approach that you're only allowed one habitable dwelling per lot. That's spelled out in dimensional requirements, and it's kind of spelled out in definitions. The reason for this change is to have that even more solidified, because there was some confusion and maybe some gray room within that. So again, the changes that I have here are to section 2.0 of the Sawyer County zoning ordinance, parent 30, which is for dwelling units, that added the sentence there on the last end that only one dwelling unit is allowed per lot. And then again, going to the definition of lot, is that a parcel of land occupied or capable of being occupied by one building or one dwelling unit, just to underline and also specify dwelling unit. So that is where lot states that you're only allowed the one building, but building has a different definition. So again, solidifying those ordinance requirements is that it doesn't create issues in the long run. Other than that, the other portions of the temporary guest corridors and bunkhouse ordinance have not changed since version 13.1 and 13.2. This has been up for discussion for the better half of this year, and we've had the review from legal, who is left at this point, or I believe she said that everything was enforceable and legal per the ordinance requirements, that we may be ready to finally send this out to the towns to see if they're on board with this. And again, this was from a situation where it's a very hard regulatory enforcement issue. A lot of these times, a lot of these things that we're seeing are these, quote unquote habitable garages, or that bonus room above a garage. We've always maintained the mentality that you're not able to do that, and then that is actually a habitable living area, which would be confined to them being a dwelling unit, and you're only allowed the one dwelling unit per lot. There's several hundred of them out there where it becomes an enforcement nightmare as to go into someone's upstairs of the garage and make sure they don't have sleeping quarters in there. We don't do those kind of inspections, nor do we have the enforceability, whether we have the legal enforceability to even do it. We've gone to sites where we've suspected that there were sleeping quarters in garages or other outbuildings, and lo and behold, there wasn't. And we've gone to others where we didn't think there would be a separate walled off area for sleeping, and there is. That's where the ordinance draft and where this ordinance is trying to help the zoning department from that regulatory issue, is that if it's very difficult to enforce, maybe we can craft and develop an ordinance to potentially allow it and permit it. If there's any questions on the draft version you have in front of you, I can certainly help answer any of those. Like I said, this was helped prepared from a couple other members of the Town of Bass Lake Planning Commission, as well as another individual from the Town of Bass Lake, who kind of helped me in the process with kind of drafting this language. Again, this wouldn't be the public hearing for it at this point. This would just be the discussion action by the committee to at least send it to the towns. If the towns came back with at least over 51% approval of the draft version, we would at that point hold an official public hearing of this ordinance change.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have one question.
Sure.
So only one dwelling is allowed per lot. So if you have a lot with a house and a garage, and the people want to put some little bedroom up on the top, above the garage, is that permitted or not?
That would be what this ordinance is allowing, because currently, no. That would be, that bedroom area would be considered habitable living area. And habitable living area, we didn't have to touch the definition. I can go back to our current ordinance of that.
Right.
But as of right now, that ordinance would not allow additional habitable living area in a second
Right.
unit or a second structure.
Right. No,
That habitable living area is defined as an area devoted to sleeping, beds, or it's from beds or bedrooms or sleeping quarters.
Right.
So as of right now, having bedroom space or sleeping space in a garage is an illegal use per the ordinance.
Right, no, I
Which
understand. So if you have a house and a garage with some sleeping space above, that two dwellings per lot or one dwelling per lot?
Is that garage attached to the house?
No.
Then you have two habitable areas, which is in violation. This would then set to allow that if you meet the requirements of the ordinance as of having that additional habitable space, temporary
Right, no.
living space with no kitchen facilities in that garage area.
So would a detached garage be considered a dwelling unit with sleeping areas above?
Dwelling unit, no, in that a dwelling unit would also have to include the kitchen. So this is where we craft the ordinance that those garage areas are not considered dwelling units in that they don't have the three criteria that would make up a dwelling unit, which is bedrooms, bathrooms, and a kitchen. So we've strictly done that in a way that we struck out kitchen as to not violate the dwelling area. So this would be a standalone temporary guest quarters. So we do have to be clever with the way we make the terms and how we define these, and that it is not a separate dwelling unit in that it does not and could not contain a kitchen facility.
So Rebecca's all right with the way this is drawn up then?
She was last month. She didn't see the two little changes that I made to the dwelling unit, and that only one dwelling unit is allowed per lot, and then the addition to the lots. But I don't think that makes a huge change to it. It's further solidifying other portions of the ordinance that it's listed in.
Mr. Morgan?
Just a quick question. I know you said habitable dwelling is defined elsewhere in the ordinances. Lower down here, it refers to, that these cannot be the first building on a lot. There has to be a principal dwelling.
Correct.
Is that sufficiently defined in other portions, or does that need to be included in this since it is referenced below?
The principal dwelling aspect?
Correct.
So it's defined in the shoreland ordinance as what an actual principal dwelling unit is. I've seen that in the actual zoning ordinance itself, it only talks about principal use, which I can get to right here. Principal use is the primary use of a property or structure. We could further add the language from the shoreline zone district into the general zoning ordinance to solidify what a principal structure is. And the principal structure would be that of the primary dwelling on the lot, the house.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I've actually wanted to do that years ago. I mean, I would love to just throw additional definitions into my ordinance and clean it up as I go, but unfortunately, that's not how the world works. But yes, I mean, I can certainly add that definition in there, and even if there was a motion today to send this to the towns, I can include that motion, add the language from the shoreline zoning ordinance as to what the principal structure definition is in that ordinance, to include that in the general zoning ordinance.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I will move to send this out to the towns with the addition of the recommendation from my buddy here. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to send this on to the towns. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Aye.
All right, we have one other agenda item under new business. This is number 4.C. We talked a little bit about this last month and had some additional conversations with legal counsel. In our zoning ordinance, there is no mention of rentals of structures. The short-term rentals, the vacation rentals, that was something that we ended up, sorry, it was a weird buzzing noise. That was something that we allowed the health department to look at the rental aspect side of things. So there's really no mention in the zoning ordinance of the rentals of structures. We have instances throughout the county where we have an existing lot where you have 2 existing dwelling units on them. Those being of what I would consider to be existing non-conforming. Means that those dwelling units were placed there prior to the zoning ordinance coming into effect that would only have allowed 1 per dwelling unit. For my record search, that was 1975. I believe it was March 1 or March 13th of 1975. There was a pretty big zoning change at that point. So if you had 2 existing cabins on your lot pre-1975, you're then considered existing non-conforming, which means you can keep both of those cabins on the lot and continue to do so because you had it in there prior to that ordinance coming through. So we run into the situation where we have those existing out there, and now those individuals want to rent both of those units. There's nothing in ordinance form that either says yay or nay, and it's something that I need as a policy decision from this committee as to how to proceed with those moving forward. Does this committee see that rentals of 2 existing non-conforming dwelling units on the same lot are something that would be considered more of a resort type of use and would further require a conditional use permit to do so, or that it would not be considered that and you would just need to have multiple rentals from the health department, as they are the ones that currently, if you just had 1 dwelling unit on your property, you would work through them in order to obtain your short-term rental license. Again, I'm looking for the policy determination from this committee, and that I have nothing in ordinance form to fall back on. Now, by making this policy decision, we can look at doing an adoption of draft language that would include it, but again, that's a sticky situation as well, in that currently we don't have anything on the books for any of the rental stuff. So, you know, we had this talk, 3-4 years ago when we first started with the short-term rentals, on whether or not this committee wanted to hear, 300 to 500 conditional use permits for everyone that was renting out their cabin. That discussion at that time was that the committee did not want to hear those, and we wanted to have it held through a separate entity, and that's why we ended up becoming an agent of the state, and that those health department agents of the state can now issue and license short-term rentals.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So what's your recommendation? I mean, what's your preference and why?
The recommendation, you can put me on the spot here. If we go the route of to make ordinance form that requires conditional use permit for these scenarios, I would somewhat be hesitant in that you're probably opening a can of worms you might not want to open. It further goes on to, does this work in condominium situations where you had one of those existing resorts back from the 60s that had, 12 little cabins close to the water. Now they've gone the condominium route where each individual owner owns a form of those cabins, yet it's still on one single parcel. Do those condo owners now, if they want to rent out their cabins to other individuals, do they require a conditional use permit because now you've made that? So that's the kind of worms issue that I'm fearful for, in that if the health department still needs to license them and they're not operating as a resort, which would include a central lodge location or offer other amenities such as laundry service or cooking or something along those lines, that they would have a different designation, I would say that my recommendation would be we would allow rentals on multiple dwelling units not to exceed more than 2 per lot. Because I guess when you would get to 3, then yeah, you could really say that, no, that's more of a resort type of use, and that was something that would need a conditional use.
Roy? Oh, sorry.
No, go
No,
ahead.
sorry.
No, I was just wondering, I mean, if these were originally grandfathered in, there should be a finite number, correct?
Correct.
This won't increase. So if they were grandfathered in the past, it's kind of like changing the rules now. So I like your idea of, it's just a matter of determining really the number. I mean, some of these parts that were grandfathered in have ostensibly more than even 2, correct?
Correct. I mean, those old resort situations that went to condo. We've actually seen now there's a swing. All those resorts, they went to condos back in like the 90s, early 2000s. The resort business was dying. We've actually seen a few now that are now flipped back, and those that are now wanting to potentially reoperate it as actually a resort function, which is interesting to see. So now they luckily have the correct zone district in order to do so, and they proceeded as such.
So if they were grandfathered in, regardless of the number of them, what would be the difference in terms of how we view them as opposed to a VRBO on a single parcel? If initially they were grandfathered in, which we can't do anything to change that, and well, I mean, we can, but it probably wouldn't go over well.
Right, and that's where the policy decision comes up is,
Sure.
should those that have more than one dwelling unit on that one lot require some other form of conditional use from this committee in order to operate? We do have the language specified, which I have up here, in that, in the RR1 or RR2 zone district, it talks about the multi-dwelling development, which is for a new condominium, hotel, motel, or resort, or other development, which is in the same general scale and character. It does not include the conversion of existing properties to a condominium ownership, existing resorts, motels, hotels, or other existing multi-dwelling development, unless more rental dwelling units are being proposed.
Okay, do we have any idea how many parcels and/or units that this would impact? Because part of it would be scope. If it's, to me, the bigger it is, the more there are of them.
Yeah,
the more
for
careful we need to be.
existing non-conforming multiple dwelling units on the same property, excluding resorts and condominiums, you're probably around 100. Those are just old houses that they built 2 cabins pre-75 because they wanted 2 cabins on their property. Yeah, I would say probably close to, if not over 100.
Mr. Betcher?
It sounds like your question's been answered, or, you're kind of answering it yourself there. Personally, I don't see any need to go with conditional use permits for such a small number of examples. It looks like it's only going to get smaller over time and not larger, and it's probably less than 100. I think that's maybe just a guess, but yeah, I would stick with just letting the health department manage those rental or leasing requirements, and for us to not add more unnecessary work, in my opinion.
Okay. Becca?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, Mr.
Sorry.
Schumer.
Trying to hit my button here. No, I totally agree with these gentlemen. That's the reason we created the agent of the state. We had Health and Human Services license, regulate, monitor these short-term rentals. We're collecting some money with these licensing and that from them. So I think it's a win-win. We don't need this to come here. I think they do a very good job, and that's where I'm at.
Okay. Okay. Doug, you want to come up? You want to speak on this?
Phil also has his hand up as well.
Okay.
Douglas Kurzweil, 11055W Arrow Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. I think the reason we're discussing this at all today, This isn't a hypothetical, okay? Resort went out of business, got lotted and chopped 1977, 78. Little dead-end private road. 6 or 8 different parcels with buildings on. Vast majority of them are owner occupied. I'm going to be 70 at my next birthday, and I'm the second youngest resident owner in the neighborhood. So right next door to me, I bought my place, owned R1, residential. Resort had been out of business over 20 years. I bought my place in 2000. The lot next door had 2 of these little old 1945, 1950, 16 by 22, 16 by 24 old resort cabins. There are people sporadically, you know, summertime, owner, family members. I mean, what the heck? It's up north. Residential neighborhood, same people coming back every year, you know. It was a community. So the owner's son has gotten title to the property, had one of the cabins completely renovated, and now has gotten a permit. He's tore down the second one, and he's going to build a new cabin there. And this past year, by gosh, I was advised by someone that, hey, he's even got a website, oldarrowresort.com. He intends to build the second one and then rent 2 cabins on this private dead-end road. Well, he's not at the end of it. You know, I'm second from the end, I guess. And it totally changes the makeup of this little community of old people. One of the neighbors says he pulls a lot of his gear and electronics out of his boat now. He used to be able to, you know, for 20 years, never a problem. And we haven't had a problem. The renters that have been in there have been fairly good. One batch of them had a couple of dogs they tied up outside for several hours at a time, and then they'd take off in their vehicle or in their boat. And then another one lit a fire, of course, in the fire ring, with knee-high flames on a Friday evening, and they were gone for several hours. But again, I know that you let people rent 1. And if you're going to let them rent 2, these people with the, I'm going to call them cabins over their garages, are going to, they're going to wind up suing you and look for equal treatment so they can rent out the living quarters or guest quarters in the bunkhouse or in the cabin over the garage. And I think Jay and I have talked, we figured there's about, I figured a couple hundred, you figured about 400 of these garages with habitable living space?
More than that, 1,000.
Okay, well, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if you're going to have a significant percentage of them disrupt their R1 residential neighborhoods and communities by trying to pull the same thing that you are considering allowing happening next door to me. So I think you want to be looking ahead a little bit, not just trying to make one little problem go away temporarily, with the risk of creating hundreds of more significant problems for the zoning administration and for yourselves, as well as for the folks who are living here and trying to have some peace and quiet. You know, again, RR1, residential, recreational. We don't have any problem with seasonal neighbors, but when it's a different batch of people from all over the country every week, and especially this year with what's been going from coast to coast through our country. So I just be very, very careful what path you proceed on. You get sued by a couple of hundred of these people who want to rent the garages, and if you cave for them, then you're probably going to get sued by 10 times as many people who are their neighbors. So it's a situation that step, and each step you're getting closer to a cliff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jay. I just want to advise the committee, we do have language included in the temporary guest quarters bunkhouse ordinance that would not allow for the rental of that space. And the owner would also need to sign an affidavit that would be recorded on the deed that is stating those requirements. Currently, I do not have that affidavit drafted, but that would be in there. So it not only does the current owner know they're signing it, it also goes on the deed that it can't be rented. I did have a conversation with the health department, specifically Matt McKay and Brian Becker, talking about these multiple rentals. They were actually able to give me a list of about 4 of these properties that were trying to include their garage rental as part of their licensing for their property. Now again, that rental, that garage dwelling unit, that's in violation of the ordinance and would not be allowed to occur. So at that point, in conversations with the health department, they have now pulled that license to not allow the rental of the garage. Now, if someone's gonna go back door and do it behind closed doors or cash on the barrelhead, that's not something that the county is giving a stamp of a license that you can rent that garage unit out. You only keep that honest man honest with those kind of scenarios. But I just wanted to make that clarification that I would treat those as 2 separate issues. We're not looking at allowing the garage units to be rented at all. That was never the intent, nor would it be the intent.
The bulk of those 2-story garages, when people took out the permit, there was a statement on the permit, no habitable living space, and they signed off on that too.
Did you say Phil wanted to speak?
Phil's hand is up, but he always kind of puts his hand up for whatever reason. don't know
I
if
got a
he-
comment at the end. I'm gonna lower it. How's that? There we go.
All right, thank you. You just put it back up again.
All right.
Then we had that one other sheet there.
Well, this one here is Lois. Linda's on the temporary guest quarters.
Okay.
We'll go back to that one, Linda, when we're done with this, so you can speak. I'm sorry you got missed here. I just got this, so.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Jay, could you state again what your recommendation is?
So my recommendation is that we do not look at having a rental or conditional use permit requirement on rental units of more than 2 for existing non-conforming structures on the same lot.
So anything over 2, we would require a conditional use permit.
I would.
Okay.
And if that is the policy decision you'd want to make, I would eventually come back with draft language ordinance that would support that. But in the meantime, there is again, there's a scenario that it's occurring right now that needed some immediate attention prior to a draft ordinance document getting finalized.
Okay.
My rationale would be that I would think that this would be something that's already regulated by the health department, and that what is a additional conditional use is going to, what service or what purpose is this committee hearing that conditional use for?
It shouldn't be conditional use, they should have to rezone.
They could still apply for a multi-dwelling development within that zone district under a conditional use.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Paulson.
What are the next steps? I mean, are you looking for direction?
The next step would be for this committee to set that policy, and then for me to further draft language as to solidify your policy decision.
And it don't have to go to the town.
It would.
It would?
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
That would not be a shoreline zone district or shoreline ordinance.
Yes. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I think a further rationale for the committee can be state statutes that apply and preempt the county from regulating short-term rentals. That's in 66.1014. If you were to move ahead with this, you would also need to take a close look at your ordinances to make sure definitions are consistent. In doing a brief review of the pertinent definitions, there is not guidance in the statutes as to how we could potentially make those revisions. So again, a rationale for how you're moving forward would be state statutes that already apply to this scenario, and that we'd have to do a close look at the preemption issues on any regulation.
Mr. Morgan?
My only concern is putting the condition of more than two. I mean, we're trying to keep this simple, and it's a finite number. So now all of a sudden, we're trying to address this, which I agree with, but now we're going to have two separate ones yet again for non-conforming that were grandfathered in. So we're splitting up these 100 properties into those that have to do a CUP and those that can just go through the health department? Is that what I'm understanding?
Right, and those that would still have to go through the CUP. I mean, we do have some individuals that come in once in a while. They're like, they want to build a second cabin on their property. Now, in order to build a second cabin on your property, you need the minimum dimensional requirements in order to be allowed to. So let's say you had 200 feet of frontage on some lake, but yet you didn't want to legally split that into two lots and put one cabin over here and one cabin over there. Let's say you wanted them fairly close together, but you had the minimum requirements to make two legal lots. That type of scenario, in order to make that new house, they would need to come in for a conditional use permit at that point to make a multi-dwelling development. You meet the ordinance requirements to create the two lots, but we're not gonna tell you, you gotta split that thing right down the middle and you gotta have a cabin over here and a cabin over there. We're allowing you to put the cabins close together, but that you could further subdivide of that parcel, and be approved a conditional use permit. So in those instances, if they were then approved a conditional use permit for that multi-dwelling development, I would have no issues, and nor would I even bring that type of policy decision to this committee. I would strictly tell them to go to the health department, as that was permitted then by this committee for that multi-dwelling development. It's the scenarios where we don't have the conditional use permits in place because they were existing non-conforming structures. Now, if your question back to me was, okay, what if you had 3 existing non-conforming structures? I guess maybe that's how the policy decision should read. Maybe we shouldn't cap it at a number, but have that language as that existing non-conforming structures.
That's what I would prefer.
Yeah, we can do that. Anything else, committee?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Chairman.
Go ahead,
Other
Mr.
matters
President.
of discussion. I want to just recognize and compliment zoning, the whole zoning department, Jay and all of the people. I know that you guys are swamped, you're under a lot of pressure, and I believe you're doing an excellent job. And if anybody, and I know zoning can be cantankerous with the public, and if any member of the public mistreats you folks, I certainly would, you've got our support. I'd like to know about that.
Appreciate it. You want me to start making a list of those that are contentious in our office?
Yeah,
How much
I'd
paper
like
and
to
pen
see
you
them.
got?
Yeah, well, no, you know what I'm trying to say.
I do.
So we want to have your back, and don't take much from irate citizens. Obviously, you've got public service issues.
We are here for you guys. We will
Appreciate
back
that.
you.
Thank you, thank you.
Right. And then the second item is I would like to have on the November agenda resolutions of a campground on Cadillac, which is in my district. I know, Jay, you're aware of it, you're working on it, but I know that there are 12, I don't know what you call them, hookups with water and electricity, best I can find out. And it's not a registered campground yet, and I just would like to have a resolution of that on it, because it's in my district. So we have it on November to check out.
Yeah, if you'd like to speak about that, whether it's in an open session here, or if you'd like to speak individually, I'll leave that up to you. I'm glad you did say the November one, and that we could bring it back for additional discussion in October. I have had several conversations with that individual. They're not necessarily wanting to make it a licensed campground. yet have already gone through the process of doing the electrical PED hookups. Now, we have potential issues with that if and when those campers are put on there. But I'm not sure how I can regulate and enforce just an electrical PED being stuck up out of the ground with no camper being there. Could you designate that and call that a site and say that's illegal? But once a camper is actually there, then yes, then I have enforcement action to say, no, you now have an illegal campground and a citation will be issued. But just to have the electrical PED sticking up there because he ultimately put them up without knowing any of the rules or ordinances and we ended up finding out about it, do we make him now go and cut down the electrical PEDs? He is allowed currently, because this property has an existing structure on it, he's allowed up to 5 campers for special events and family reunions. This individual's initial idea was to have a 12 campsite unit that he would hold for customer appreciation days and do pig roast. His intent was never to have a full campground, but that's certainly how it has the look and feel of it. We are addressing it still with the town as to, you know, say, town, do we want to hold a kind of a special event permit that would allow him to have 12 campers for these, you know, 2 events a year where campers would be there for 3 days a year, or three days per occurrence for 2 occurrences. So we're looking at crafting a potential special event that would allow just that operation, but yeah, I do have concerns with it as well and have been working with that one.
There is campers there though.
Yeah.
There's one.
There's 2.
There's 2 now?
There was 2 there the other day when I went by there.
All right.
There's been 2 there for about a week.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because when I went there the day before Labor Day, there was only 1, so, all right. I will be making a call to that owner again.
Okay, so we can put it on the record, and I'm interested in the resolution, you know, because this could be a policy issue.
So what happened we didn't finish up the non-conforming habitable dwelling?
Like I said, I would like, I don't know, if is a motion what I would need to set policy?
Yes.
And that policy is just a short-term decision until I can adopt
Or can we
an
just
ordinance?
postpone it or table it?
And this is the question I'd had for you, because there's nothing that's there's nothing that says in the ordinance of whether or not you can or can't do it. So there's nothing that's, you know, a matter of interpretation. It's literally just not in the ordinance for the rentals of multi-dwelling units. Again, that's been something that's held with the health department, where I guess the policy that I'm wanting from this committee is that it's still held at the health department, and then we further go with an ordinance amendment to solidify that position. But what does this committee need to do in order to make that?
Make that happen.
Yeah.
I don't think, technically, you as the department director do not need committee authority to set policy. The question becomes whether that policy is actually an ordinance, because there is a legal difference between those two. So if this is being classified as a policy, you don't need the committee's approval. I think it's fantastic that you're bringing this issue to the committee to talk through what their policy perspectives are, and that's exactly what just happened. So no, you don't need a motion or official action by the committee to set your internal policy.
Okay.
Good. But what about Mr. Morgan, what he wanted in there? Did you get that down?
Well, no, I just did not want, I was agreeing with,
Oh, okay, all right.
So, yeah, so I guess we've set policy decision from my recommendation?
just to not put a distinction, I think that's what we were discussing, is to not have a distinction on the number as long
Right.
as as long as they were grandfathered.
That existing non-conforming dwelling units can be rented as long as they were existing dwelling units, existing non-conforming dwelling units.
Rebecca?
Just to give a quick comment on policy versus ordinance. Again, Jay as director doesn't does it have to technically get committee approval for a policy? If it's an ordinance, yes, it has to be appropriately passed through the legislative process, which it would. The difference generally is a policy is a directive, but it can be deviated from within the director's reasonable discretion. So if there are situations that that create circumstances that would justify Jay's deviating from the policy, he could do so. If it's an ordinance, then it has to be followed per the letter, and it eliminates the director's discretion.
But we still need a motion, or no?
No, we wouldn't. I think the discretionary part can be very valuable. in a
Absolutely.
situation.
Right, and that's exactly why units of government allow policies, because not every situation, every fact pattern can be anticipated in the binding law, and I personally feel nor should it be. You know, that's why you have a department director, so you've got somebody with the expertise and the knowledge.
There's already laying up pounds.
Exactly.
So how does this get
And
sent
that's why
back
you're
to the
lucky
town?
you've got a good one and a good staff, because you are
Right.
giving the director a lot of discretion.
Yes, and that's where it should come from anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. Is the people. Yeah.
So I'll get some policy written down in writing, and I will send it out to the chairman to approve said policy.
Okay.
Just to solidify it into their policy.
Can I ask a question for clarification?
Go ahead, please.
Existing non-conforming, as of a specific date?
As a specific time as the ordinance required that we would only be allowed one existing, or you'd only be allowed one habitable dwelling per lot. That ordinance changed, from my recollection, as of right now, was from March 13th, 1975. So if something was predating,
Okay. The one cabin was ripped right down to the subfloor and the studs and rebuilt.
correct?
So that was existing and continues in existing.
Correct, and,
Well, all that's there now is the sand lift with some form.
correct, and that they,
Not existing anymore.
yes, but there is also, that would be that existing non-conforming use, and that they had the two existing dwelling units, and there's further ordinance, actually set ordinance language, that allows replacement of those existing non-conforming structures within the same footprint, and also allows 50% expansion of those existing non-conforming structures when you have two multiple habitable dwellings on the same parcel.
And the neighbors don't get a chance to weigh in.
On this point, no, there would be an over-the-counter land use permit from our office.
Pardon?
It would be an over-the-counter land use permit from our office.
No, I'm saying for the rental of that one that they're gonna build.
At this point, no.
And you're gonna be renting guest houses.
Well, whatever happens, I guess. So, we're done with that part of it then, right?
We are, yeah, and the other business, I know other discussions with Mr. Paulson, next month, you know, we were anticipating this one being extremely busy, which we're still looking at the 10:30 hour already. We wanted to bring back a resolution to assume county administration for the Uniform Dwelling Code inspection process. I will get together with legal counsel and we'll try to draft something pertaining to that type of resolution. That'll be for the October meeting. And then we will get that potential campground policy, or at least have further discussion about the campground in November for the one there on Cadillac Road.
All right, yes.
We had talked about this before, in drafting such a resolution. Happy to work with staff to do that. I would just recommend, I spoke specifically with the counties association folks on this, to look to what other counties are doing, you know, what trends are, et cetera. And the advice was just make sure you work closely with your stakeholder partners, which I'm sure has happened, but I would just reaffirm that, just based on our experience at WCA. So before you bring a resolution forward, just make sure that those conversations are had. That would be my advice. And we can talk more on
Stakeholders
offline.
being the towns, and stakeholders being the
Towns.
contracted uniform dwelling code
All
inspectors of those towns.
All. And the Builders Association is another key.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we gotta back up here. We missed Linda here. She wants to speak on the bunkhouse ordinance.
believe that motion and vote was taken to go ahead and send that on to the towns, and I thought it merited further discussion, similar to what you did with the campground before sending it to towns. I know from the towns that I visit, they'll get a piece of paper in there like, well, what is this? And just even this whole subsequent discussion that we had is one of those things about looking at it holistically. Should that have been addressed in there? And partially it is, but I don't think completely. So you made the vote. I'm guessing you're not going to want to reconsider that, but thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Okay. Any other business that may come before the committee? Discussion? If none, we're adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Good job.
Good work.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.